We always ask that everyone who participates in our events always contributes respectfully and that you do not share any public information. We ask that you always treat each other with kindness and inclusiveness. We want to remind everyone that we're here to share knowledge and to learn, not to advertise or do sales pitches, and we do not allow the use of bots. I also want to let you know that we are recording this event and it will be posted out on our FinOps Foundation YouTube channel sometime in the near future. And we'll throw that link in the chat. Actually, any links we talk about today, we will throw in the chat for you. I also want to let you know that our panelists are going to be sharing their personal opinions and experiences. These are their views and they do not necessarily represent the official positions or policies or endorsements of the companies that they work for. I also want to share with you our mission. The FinOps Foundation is a nonprofit organization. We're very dedicated to our mission, which is to advance the people who manage the value of the cloud. And we do this through community engagement, events like this today, through education, best practices, and standards. And if you'd like to know any more about these things, please go out to finops.org. There's all kinds of information out there. Next, let me introduce you to our amazing panel. We will save time at the end for Q&A. But if you think of something that you want to ask and you don't want to forget, feel free to throw it in chat and then we'll address it during Q&A. And we'd love it if you do ask a question during Q&A, if you come off camera. We always love seeing your faces. So let's meet our panel. I'm going to introduce each of them and ask them to tell us a little bit about themselves, where they live, who they work for, what they do in the field of FinOps. First, I'm going to ask Karolina Dabrovska to introduce herself.
Hi everyone, so my name is Karolina Dabrovska and I'm joining you from Lithuania, which is a very small, tiny country in northeast Europe. And currently I'm working at Nordic Bank, at the SwedBank as a FinOps lead. And I'm building functional from the ground up, collaborating with other stakeholders and establishing key capabilities, processes, and everything in between. So I'm very excited to join this community.
Thanks, Karolina. Really appreciate you being here. Melanie, how about you go next?
Hi, I'm Melanie Edwards. I live here in the U.S. in Ohio, by way of California. I was born and raised in California. I work for Carrier Corporation. If you haven't heard of them, they're the inventors of the modern air conditioner. So sure you've experienced us in some form or facet. I am the Associate Director of FinOps. So pass it along.
Tammy, how about you? Thank you, Melanie. Really glad to have you here.
Hi, Regina. My name is Tammy Burnitt, and I live in USA in the most southern state of Texas. We border the Mexico border. We're getting some nice weather today. It's more like California. Usually it's pretty warm here. And I work for a company by the name of UIPath, and I've been there for 2 days now, so I'm definitely drinking from the fire hose. This company is known for their robotic process, their artificial intelligence, and they're coming out with an agentic AI. And so super excited to add that skill to my FinOps working experience. And what do I do in FinOps? As an ambassador, I'm a FinOps professional and a FinOps ambassador. And I think I would best describe my role in FinOps as helping advance the practice of FinOps. Also on an adopting FinOps work group. I'm on an AI work group, and there's some offshoots of that. But I think, you know, where I kind of thrive is helping people adopt FinOps. And I actually just authored a business case for modernization of FinOps. And so, you know, since hyperscalers are constantly changing, it's an opportunity for us to take a look at our FinOps practices, re-examine those, and then figure out ways where we can modernize those and kind of keep up with the pace of the services that hyperscalers are releasing. So that's a little bit about me.
Thanks, Tammy. I know life is really crazy for you right now, so we are especially grateful that you've joined us today. Next, I'm going to ask Shaheen Bokhari to introduce herself. Shaheen is actually our moderator for today. And then after she introduces herself, I'm going to be quiet, stop sharing my screen, and let the discussion begin. So Shaheen, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm Shaheen. I have 3 kids. I'm a mother of 3. I have an investment banking background. I live and work in London. I currently work for ICAP. ICAP is a financial services company. We are a leading broker. Our clients are banks, asset managers, and hedge funds. I work in our global cloud team, and I lead the cloud FinOps function now for almost 4 years. I'm an active member of the FinOps Foundation and very excited about talking to the wonderful, inspirational, incredible women on the panel today. So I'll start with my first question for you, Melanie, if you wouldn't mind. Have you ever felt uncomfortable sharing your achievements? How did you overcome that hesitation? I can start with my own experience. I used to be quite conscious speaking about my experiences, really shy about mentioning my successes, but being part of the FinOps community has really helped me. The more events I've attended, the more peers I've heard from, the more validated I felt. These conferences and community events have played a big part in me being able to talk about what I do, the little successes to the big successes. And then last year, when I went to the FinOps conference in Barcelona, I spoke on stage. I spoke about in detail about what I had achieved, the FinOps practices I had implemented, and the successes I had seen as an outcome of that. I felt, and I strongly feel that connecting with like-minded people, this platform has been my mechanism to overcome my hesitation and really be comfortable in my own skin. Have you had a similar experience, Melanie, that you would like to share?
Yeah, I will say that naturally I'm still working in this area. I don't necessarily think I realize my accomplishments enough. I'm always focused on future state. I'm very hard on myself. So I'm always like, I put all of these goals in place and I'm like, how do I get there? And I don't sit back and take time to realize how far I've come. That's something that happens naturally for me. So I have to literally pause when I'm getting stressed out because I'm getting overwhelmed from my own expectations. Then I take a step back and I say, hey, where have you come from? Like, how far have you come? Like 2 years ago, I was like completely different space. Like you said, Shaheen, the FinOps Foundation is very helpful. Just meeting other people in that space and sharing stories to express where everyone has come from and what their plans are and their future growth. So that does help, but I don't have all the answers. I'm still figuring them out myself, but I just want to make sure that, um, you know, we're not going to have all the answers and it's okay. It's recognizing areas where you are struggling or maybe need to put focus on to overcome.
I just wanted to ask a similar question to Tammy as well. What are some ways you've learned to celebrate your successes, whether they be big or small? Any strategies that you can share with us that have helped you confidently articulate your skills and accomplishments in your professional setting? I'd love to hear from you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, coming from a really, really large environment, sometimes you can get lost in the shuffle, right? And FinOps is new. And so a lot of times you're talking about FinOps and you're trying to explain what exactly is FinOps because it's still very new. And a lot of people may not, have the linkage between the finance and the technical, but absolutely yes. And I tend to lead by example, trying to bring a positive energy and I think it's about marrying those accomplishments with the value that they deliver. And I'm a big storyteller. And so sometimes if you're trying to get your accomplishments it's easier for people to understand your accomplishments when you can link it to a goal or an initiative or a project, right? And I love to give examples. And so, I possibly have had an experience, sharing accomplishments maybe once or twice that have resulted in, shall we say, some unsupportive or some unsolicited feedback. And, I can recall a time where I think somebody said, we all know you have X, Y, or Z experience, Tammy, and whatever certifications and blah, blah, blah. And I think, I was kind of quick on my feet and I said, well, thank you for the recognition. It's a lot of hard work and it's definitely been a journey. But I think with these experiences, they bring, education milestones. And I think when you talk about your experiences, your knowledge and your certifications and the things that you are doing in this FinOps space, that is the bedrock of any program relating to FinOps that you're executing. And your education enablement spills over into other people, and that's how you give back. That enablement cascades across your company. And, I think there's two sides to that coin, sharing your accomplishments, because sometimes they can be taken in a positive fashion. And then sometimes, maybe you'll get not so, I love these, I call them unsolicited feedback. And so, you just kind of smile and, find something positive to say in that moment. But absolutely, your accomplishments are yours and they're yours to share. And hopefully you're in an environment where they'll be uplifted. And, they're really going to be the bedrock. That education enablement and experience and certifications, that's where it's at. Absolutely.
Absolutely. Agree. What about you, Karolina? How did you first come to recognize your own expertise? Was there like a whoa moment? Was like a defining moment that helped you like really feel confident about it, help you solidify that?
So for me, recognizing my own expertise came gradually, and I'm still not there yet. But there was a defining moment. It wasn't just about a single breakthrough or achievement, but more about understanding the value of my experiences and the skills, even though when they didn't always align with conventional expectations. And also the turning point came when I took a step into the FinOps certification and I joined the community. It was that moment when I truly recognized my own expertise. I have been navigating this field on my own, then together connecting with the peers, absorbing the knowledge, making connections and applying concepts in real-world scenarios in our organization. So the certification didn't just validate my skill, but also gave me confidence to believe in myself, my own place in industry, since I actually migrated from the IT finance world into the FinOps, more technical world. So now I just realized that expertise isn't about all answers. It's about having the courage to keep learning, embracing new challenges, trusting your own experience and insights. For me, the process of self-acceptance and recognition my expertise wasn't realizing to my own unique journey. Its perspective and contribution, whether I fit into the mold or traditional IT professional or not. So if anyone's still questioning their expertise, I think it's very important to trust your own journey, keep learning, don't be afraid to step up and celebrate your own wins, no matter big, small, and within your family, within your team, or by the audience.
I agree. I think self-acceptance is like the first step, right? You've got to be confident in your skin, and then worry about tackling the world. One other topic that's very sadly common amongst us females is that many women struggle with imposter syndrome. Have you guys ever experienced it? How do you navigate through it? Why do you think that women do not embrace or promote their worth or value? I can give an example. I mean, in my previous position, I wanted to be considered for a promotion, but I just couldn't pluck up my courage to ask. And finally, when I did ask, my female boss was quite like wowed by it, and she congratulated me and said, "I'm so glad you asked. Regardless of the outcome, you should always ask." So I was like, "Oh, okay, yeah, that's true. What's the worst that can happen? They can say no, but if I ask, I have a chance." So that was an important learning for me. And then another thing I've heard is that men would apply for a new position or a role, even if they qualify for 2 to 3 of the criteria required for the job. But women commonly only apply if they meet at least 8 to 9 of the required criteria. Um, Karolina, Melanie, I'd like to hear from you both that the advice you would give to women who struggle with this kind of self-promotion.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, for me personally, it's throughout my experience where the self-doubt comes from. You know, as a kid, it's like you're free and you don't have all of these reservations. I've worked at several companies in the past, and being in male-dominated fields, being in high-level executive meetings and being yelled at multiple times. I mean, there's a lot of unprofessionalism that happens. And it starts diminishing, you know, your confidence. So I had to work through that and, you know, just focus on myself, realize what I do bring to the table. I do know what I'm talking about, and start pushing back, right? And that's led me to where I am today. So there was a time where I'm like, I don't even want to be in leadership meetings. Like, from my experience, I'm like, I don't want to deal with being chastised by all of these men, and I just don't want to be in that environment. So I would do a lot of self-doubt, looking at positions and you know, I'm like fearing, because I'm assuming at this point, based off of my experience, that they're just gonna shut me down. Like, why did you even apply for this job? And you know you don't have this experience and this experience. And I'm so glad that I'm over those days, because I held myself back so much. And joining FinOps was one of those leaps I took. I'm a former finance person. So I had to ramp up in the cloud space and technical knowledge to be able to do what I do today, but it didn't stop me from applying to a FinOps position. And so here I am 5 years later in leadership in the IT space. So I would say it's recognizing where that self-doubt comes from. I feel like it's going to be different for everyone. And then figuring out how to overcome it, right? Like Shaheen said, what's the worst that can happen? Someone says no. As far as promotions, I go into the conversation with, this is where I want to be. I talk to my leaders. This is where I want to be. How are you going to help me get there? And I think that's a good conversation to have, rather than, you know, sometimes if you just ask for a raise or an increase, it'll get shut down so fast. It's like you didn't even get a chance to really converse about it. So that's my 2 cents for what it's worth. I'll let Karolina jump in.
Yes, so I totally agree, Melanie, with you. And just, in fact, a few years ago, I also felt that I'm struggled with transitioning into the new role, and I'm facing the environments where I felt out of my depth. And early on, I often doubted whether I truly belonged to the questioning if my skills and experience were enough. I'm not qualified enough, or I don't really belong to this tech environment. But over time, I was focusing on embracing my continuous learning, and I set the goals, which I followed. And I realized that it really helps me to seek support and mentorship. When I joined the FinOps Foundation, I have learned so much. I was encouraged a lot by the mentorship program, mentors, and I felt like I'm not alone in this struggle. So just recognizing my own achievements, embracing the learning, not being afraid of speaking out loud, because you don't have to have all the answers, and set the goals and move
That's
on.
amazing. Yeah, that's amazing to hear. I mean, I don't even think the FinOps guy or foundation guys realize the role and the encouragement they provide us. And I promise you, the audience, they haven't told us to say that. This is our genuine experience of being a part of the community events and the conferences. So, I mean, it's just so inspirational to hear. And how do you think we can expand women's links to each other through mentorship, coaching, and networking? I know, like Karolina mentioned, the FinOps Foundation offers a great mentoring program, and I myself am lucky enough to have Natalie Daly as my mentor. She's the head of cloud economics and FinOps at HSBC, and I've learned so much from just speaking to her and asking her for guidance. It's been an awesome experience. I really value her tips and guidance in navigating my career. You know, having just someone outside of my organization who has that, you know, that high level view, it's really been helpful. And I'm always like, you know, asking her things that I can't ask anybody in my personal life because they just don't know FinOps, or and in my professional life because I'm just not comfortable sharing things with someone. So I have that person that I can turn to. And also last year I had the honor of being a mentor to a group of people that were participating. I'm not sure if you guys have heard about the All Builders Welcome program run by AWS, Amazon Web Services. The aim of the program, as part of efforts by AWS, is to reduce disparity due to financial constraints and increase accessibility towards training and educational programs. And they are offered at the reInvent conference in Las Vegas. And it does really help with networking, increasing connections, and really getting to know your industry and people. So I'm really interested. I'll open the floor, whoever, and I'd like to hear from all three of you on what role have mentors, sponsors, or peers played in helping you see your own expertise? How have they helped you, and how have you made the most of that support in your professional lives? We can start with Tammy, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. My FinOps career kind of goes back pretty far. I've been working in FinOps since like pre-2018, but I would say, you know, if I look overall in my career, I think finding a trusted partner, whether that's inside your organization or outside your organization, and someone that is going to really celebrate you and your career and your role and help you advance. And again, that can be inside of the company or outside the company. And at least in my career, I'll just be honest, it didn't happen for me until later in my career. I would say probably about 13 years ago. And so, you know, the power of having a trusted partner and your champion that's going to, you know, you got to get out of your comfort zone too, though, I would recommend, because, you know, getting coaching and mentorship and having those conversations, they're probably going to direct you to do things that, you know, depending on your personality, that may be absolutely outside of your comfort zone. And so I think it's about, you know, acquiring some soft skills, maybe. It could be Toastmasters. It could be, you know, getting some public speaking skills. But I would say where my career really changed was getting trusted partners, both inside the company, outside the company. That's like, you know, senior leadership mindset, like, you know, going and talking to your peers in the community. They could be a competitor, but we're all trying to figure out how to spend less money in the cloud. And so when it comes to that, you know, I was talking to people that were my competitors, but we're trying to figure out how to spend less money in the cloud. And I think for me, I was just talking right before this call started, it was kind of like a flip got switched. And so when I took this career advice and people were like, you know, read these books or go to these courses or join these organizations, then I found like I was actually a part of the community, right? People were recognizing me for either as a part of FinOps or in the FinOps organization, and that leads to podcasts or speaking engagements or white papers. And so it kind of starts out as this little collaboration, either with people inside of your company or outside of your company. But for me, I feel like that's the North Star of your career. And all these women that are on this call today, and the relationships that I have with them, and the collaboration that we invoke in talking about how to advance FinOps or do FinOps, or maybe somebody's already done that and I don't have to recreate the wheel. But for me, the mentorship and the coaching and the alliances that I create with women, both women and men in this community, they've been the North Star for me in terms of guiding and shaping my career advancement, I would say.
That's amazing to hear. What are your thoughts on that, Melanie?
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love networking, which is kind of funny because I'm an introvert. But when I go to like the conferences such as FinOps X and when I participate in community, I just feel like such a camaraderie. Like we're all in the same space, we're going through the same things, and it helps me to realize that I'm not alone. I learn, like Tammy said, I learn from peers, they learn from me, and it's just one big knowledge sharing session. So I truly have met people in the foundation that have helped me from a FinOps perspective. I will say that in my career, I've asked people to be my mentors. Anybody I look up to or I feel like they have a lot to contribute, I'll schedule a one-on-one like, hey, like, could you be my mentor? Um, because, what's the worst they could say? No. But I found from a leadership perspective, that's helped me, right? So I utilize any and all channels available. I'm also participating in the mentorship program. My mentee is out there. Hey. So we have great conversations. And I think it's very helpful that as we gain this knowledge, especially when we become leaders, to help others get there if that's where they want to go. But being open, honest, and sharing is my route.
Oh, that's very interesting to hear. And I think the key is being proactive. I mean, I'm going to try that. Just ask someone that I like the look of and looks inspirational and sounds inspirational. Just ask them, will you be my mentor? And it sounds of it, you can have more than one mentor, which is good. I guess everybody brings different skills and expertise to the table. What about you, Karolina? Any tips you'd like to share with the group?
Yes, personally, from my own experience, so in general, I was building confidence through the knowledge and soft skills. Public speaking was number one for me because I was scared to death to go out and speak. So surrounding also myself with supportive network. At this point, yes, I'm pointing to FinOps Foundation, which played actually the vital role in my career path. And the mentor I had, I still have, which is Sandra. I think most of you from the FinOps Foundation know her, so she was really encouraging me a lot to speak up, also celebrating my successes, like I mentioned, the big and small, and reminding myself that I deserve of recognition. I joined a couple of FinOps meetups as well as FinOps X in Barcelona. It played a big role in my self-confidence for sure. Connecting with the peers with the same mind having and same challenges even. So it breaks down these barriers and I started recognizing and promoting my own value.
That's amazing to hear. My next question for you, Tammy, I want to talk about women's enablement. I know we've covered that in the previous question a little bit, but I'd love to know, how have you or will you pay it forward women enablement?
That's an excellent question. And I love this question because I feel like, most of the women that are on this call embody that question. And so I think, how do you pay it forward? You pay it forward by making introductions and celebrating successes and victories And I literally jump at the opportunity to support women in every aspect possible, in any capacity, making those introductions, kind of sharing my experiences. Karolina just talked about it. When I'm at FinOps X, I meet with a lot of people and they walk up and they ask me questions, and I'll follow through with those engagements, or I'll offer to sit down and have a coffee. I just had a meetup a couple of weeks ago in Houston, and a lot of people were there. We had people from Oxy and Chevron and, a bunch of Cisco Foods and a bunch of different places. And that's an opportunity where I can meet up with people and help make introductions, right? And so, for example, I had a person that used to work for me that's looking for a role, and I happened to be sitting next to somebody at Oxy that was looking for somebody in a role, and I was able to put those two people together. And it's those little nuggets and it's those little connections. And networking is more than just, hey, who are you? Can I add you to my LinkedIn? It's about who are you and what do you do and what are you about? And there's so many people out there, and I cannot stress enough, like, making those connections, following up on the connections, offering to meet, saying, hey, did you see this article? Did you see this podcast? I have a lot of people on my LinkedIn, or reposting it. That's another way to share it. But sharing of information, sharing of ideas, sharing of introductions, I think it's really about having care moments. And that's how you lift people up, and definitely women, but also some men too. And I think, when you can take that approach to what you're doing, that's really what the FinOps community is all about. I will tell you that. I mean, because when I was looking for a role, people were like, hey, did you see this job? Did you see that job? I mean, just the kindness and the caring and the amazing people that are part of this community, it's what keeps me coming back. And I would say that's kind of my definition and how I execute in that capacity.
That's excellent advice, Tammy. I think some of us who are working in tech or financial services know how uncertain the job climate can be, the staff turnover, and we always hear about in the news about redundancies and all sorts. So that's actually very useful to know about, how valuable this community can be when you're in that kind of situation. My next question for you, Karolina, how do you go about breaking down barriers, like traditional barriers that hold women back?
Breaking down the barriers requires effort from everyone. But when women stand together, support one another, and advocate for their growth, we can, I think, shift the culture and make a lasting change. It's about building a community. What worked for me personally, where women can lead and celebrate their talents and contributions. So really creating supportive network. One of the most powerful ways, I think, for me was break down the barrier by fostering the mentorship and building supportive community network. Advocating for equal opportunities. I think women should have equal access to opportunities, whether it's a leadership role, training, or challenging project. So speaking up and advocating for those opportunities is also very important. We must also recognize our worth and actively play the important roles and projects that challenge us. Challenging stereotypes and maybe bias, the gender biases, whether conscious and unconscious, still exist and can create the barriers. So I think we must challenge these stereotypes in our head and by calling out bias when we see it and encouraging the others to do the same. For example, we can address assumption that women are less technical or less confidential in leadership role. But by pushing against these notions, we help create a more inclusive environment for everyone, I think. So really encouraging confidence and self-advocacy for women who struggles with the self-doubt, and imposter syndrome. I think it's very important to ask for what we deserve, and whatever it's a raise, promotion, or project, be brave and follow our goals.
It's wonderful.
Fostering, yeah.
So, I mean, I would say that the tech industry and the financial service industry are very male-dominated fields. I mean, we have more women working in these industries now than ever before, which is great to see. I myself I am like one of two women working in the cloud team, and that's globally. And we went out to, actively look for graduates, female graduates, when we had to hire new people for our team. Melanie, this one's for you. What advice do you have for women who want to work in this male-dominated field?
Yeah, well, I would say, first of all, I think the field is what you're interested in, and it just happens to be male dominated. So I would say just being assertive, push back when you need to, and make sure that you are staying true to yourself. I don't recommend staying in any toxic environments. There's male dominated environments where it could be a great space for you. You can get treated great. You can be able to communicate, talk about how you're feeling. Sometimes it's education. But it's, what do you do? It's like, it is what it is. And the best way to navigate is to be in a good environment, male dominated or not. So if you have a good environment, it wouldn't be such a, oh my gosh, there's no women in here. When you start feeling isolated and unheard is when you start feeling that way. So my recommendation is to not be in a position that isolates you and makes you feel unheard. I mean, you speak up, you give your feedback, but if, you're getting belittled or, situations like that, then you want to not be in that environment. I feel like we stay too much in environments where we shouldn't be, and then you look back and you're like, oh man, I worked there for 8 years and it was like hell. And it's like, why didn't I leave sooner? So my recommendation, not all male-dominated field environments are bad environments for us. It's just about the people that you actually work with.
Good, that's a good point. I think that there are ways that men can be good allies, like you said. Tammy, what about you? What do you think? What do we need to do to engage and inspire male advocates? And how do you handle situations when you're outnumbered?
Oh goodness. I don't really look at it as outnumbered now. I guess I'm kind of further along in my career. So I personally don't let it impact me. It doesn't really resonate with me too much. Unless, the situation comes out of hand. And Melanie mentioned something of not staying in a situation where it's toxic or, I was just going to give an example to that before I continue with this question. Sometimes people may not even realize they're doing it. So when we're talking about males and we're talking about inclusion, okay? And I had an example where I think I was in a call, and the first time I heard it, I was like, okay, if I hear it a second or a third time, I'm going to respond to this. And, and I think it could be culturally too, but there was two gentlemen that were speaking to me and they were like, what you don't understand is, and, I let it go the first time and then I heard it the second time and the third time is, and I think Regina and Stacey are probably going to laugh at me because I say this all the time. Let's take a pause. Let's just take a professional pause for just a second, right? And it's okay to say, just kind of reaffirm your boundaries, and in that moment I was like, let's just say that I do, right? Because I have X, Y, Z years of experience. And maybe they didn't even realize that. I was like, we can just fast forward through that, right? Or I hate to use that word mansplaining, but we're like, I got the technical concept, cool. We can just move on with this, right? And that was kind of my example of saying, it's okay. And I love to use that one, let's take a professional pause here. And it just kind of says, it resets, right? The conversation. But personally, try not to walk in the room and go, how many men or women here in the Zoom or whatever. I really meet the energy that I receive. And I think that's very important to state because, we're all just trying to row in the same direction and push in the same direction and pull in the same direction. And it's really about that chemistry and that cohesiveness. I say, really most of my job, and Melanie was saying it, we got the technical part, but the soft skills and the vibes and the emotions, and there's a lot of it, right, in the room or on the call. And so I think it's more about when you feel those moments where you're outnumbered is the upskilling and the soft skills and having the ability to handle that situation where the energy maybe goes off the rails. And then I would say you don't want to walk in the room kind of measuring how many men are there because you don't want to come in like you have a chip on your shoulder either. So I would be like, let that fall by the wayside, go lean into it, meet people where they are, have an open mind, but have those skills on the ready and that boundary and that stick to draw the line in the sand to say, these are my boundaries. But it can be done in such a professional way. And I talked about this in Women in FinOps the other day. I posted a series of, I'm always reading. So there's some books, that I posted out there in the chat, but that's kind of my take on it, it's based on my experience.
I'll definitely be using, let's take a professional pause. I like that. That's a handy tip to have in your back pocket. So moving on, I really want to ask this question and I want to hear all of your views on that. We are different from men, physiologically, biologically, we bring different skills to the table. Our physical strength is different, and we also have certain health considerations. There's plenty of research to suggest that men and women process emotions, feelings, and solve problems differently. They lead differently. They manage things, manage their time differently. Our hormones work differently. So how do we address the natural physical changes that women deal with in a professional setting in our workplace? Maybe we can start with you, Karolina.
So I think it's quite essential to normalize the conversations about natural and physical changes that one faces, whether it's pregnancy, menopause, or maybe other health issues, such as hormones being up and down. So I strongly believe that we need a workplace that supports flexibility and health-conscious policies, fostering an inclusive environment to respect each other and all the needs of women. Also that diversity, diverse environment as well. So creating supportive and flexible work environment and really to start from ourselves. If we want to have a change, we need to promote and start to do step by step from ourselves, I think.
Yeah, I agree. That's amazing to hear. What are your thoughts, Melanie?
So my hormones fluctuate quite a bit. And like I was saying, having a good environment, right? An environment where I feel safe, where I can say to my boss, like, hey, I got this email and I'm really feeling like I should just go at this person, how they just wrote this email. Like, but I also know that my hormones are out of whack. So maybe you can take a look at it and let me know if I'm reading too much into this. And half the time he's like, yeah, don't respond because he knows that, it's factual. Like we hate hearing like, oh, from men especially, like you guys are so emotional. And I mean, facts are facts. Hormones are fluctuating. We can't help it. Sometimes we're more emotional, but them understanding, most of them are married. They have wives. This is not foreign, it's not foreign to them. And they know their wives have them, their boundaries, like, just leave me alone right now. Don't talk. And we need that same courtesy in the workplace. So I think to be able to have open, honest communication, like Karolina said, also being able to what do you call it? Just lost it. Anyways, Hormone change. Memory loss is one of them. But I forgot what Karolina said. It'll come back to me probably when the call is over. But what the important part to take away from this is that we need to feel supported. We don't operate the same as men. Our hormones do fluctuate, and that's something that you want to be able to be supported. You don't want to have to like front or put on a show to act like things are not happening that are actually happening. So to my other point that I said, with another question I answered, it's about your environment. You want to feel like you're in a supported environment. If you don't, that kind of stuff is just going to be another icing on the cake of another toxic interactions. Your hormones will make that happen. So that's all I have to say on that.
Yeah.
Shaheen,
That's very
I hate to interrupt and
right.
end this amazing conversation because I think we could probably go on for another hour, but we've got about 10 minutes left. And I've got a couple of things I want to touch on before everybody departs, but I want to open things up for Q&A to see if anyone in our audience would like to ask some questions. If you do, please come off mute and ask your question. We'd love to hear from you. There's been some great discussions in the chat. So any questions for our panelists? No? No questions?
Regina, can
I have a question.
Oh, sorry. I've passed you someone there.
Hi, Hannah Wells over here. Hi, Melanie. I have a question for you all. There are over 200 people in my department and only 20 women. And the fun thing is we support the girls will go, oh, we support girls to get, above. They want to represent it, but then you find out that they're doing stuff behind the other girls' backs to kind of like get above you. And so for me, it's very challenging because you want to be that, yes, we root for each other to get above and to, do really well. But at the same time, there's that high school backstabbing that continues. Curious how you all recommend handling that instead of just brushing it off.
I'll take this. So I would say, it's kind of like we had a question on our questionnaire about mean girl syndrome and addressing how women treat other women sometimes. Sometimes it's not the men. Sometimes it's women. I feel like personally just overcompensating for wanting to not appear like to give women favoritism and trying to compete with the guys. So I will say that stay true to yourself, right? So whatever that is, I don't deal with people who are toxic. Men, women, doesn't matter. I deal with them the same. I just do know that there are situations where women are worse sometimes than men. So I would say for the women that you work with that are supportive, keep that collaboration up. For the women that aren't and, want to be in a mean girl state, then I wouldn't deal with them. If you don't have to deal with them, little interaction is possible. You don't want to give them any material to twist and kind of come at you. So it's unfortunate, but it's a reality.
I could not agree more. I'm just going to chime in on this one too. The mean girl syndrome, it's real and it happens. And I think, I don't take myself too seriously. I think Melanie knows that, and also Karolina and Regina and Stacy. So I take if you've ever seen the movie Legally Blonde, I take a Elle Woods approach to Mean Girl. Okay, and if they come in low, I'm going to come in high. And so, but I also want to seek to understand the behavior, right? Because sometimes I think it could be a misunderstanding, and sometimes it's exactly what it is, as Melanie stated, but also kind of leading by example and saying, we're better than this. And guess what? At the end of the day, if it's happening internally, everybody's got that same logo on their paycheck. So if you're on the offense and you feel like somebody on the offense is running defense, then that's a problem, right? And you don't have a shared vision, and that definitely requires a conversation. But trying to lead by example, understanding the behavior, and believe it or not, guys, I had somebody say, well, I think I was in a meeting one time and they were going to go present something that we had done. They're like, well, don't worry, we'll make sure you get credit for it, Tammy. And I'm like, it's not about that. That's a given, right? It's about being in the room to help you present it in case you have a misunderstanding of the data or don't have support technically to do that. And so I try not to take those things personally. And again, lots of books, lots of soft skills, lots of mentorship, and wanting to fire off an email when somebody says something, been right there with you, Melanie. So but I take that approach. I think when people go low, you go high, and always put your best foot forward and just kind of smile. And it's like water off a duck's back. That would be my recommendation.
Great,
Janet, did you have a question? Yes, great question, Hannah. Thank you. Thank you, Melanie and Tammy, for responding. Janet, were you going to ask a question?
No, I was more going to make an observation actually, or just really say thank you to the women for stepping up, because I'm part of another community, Black Women in Tech, and I feel like it's really changed my life and changed my aspirations. So just a really encouragement to all the women that how powerful your stories can be, and particularly different stages people are at in their career. So just thank you, really.
Thank you for that, Janet. Much appreciated. Any other questions for our panel? I just have a couple of other things I want to touch on before we let you all go. But if there are any other questions, we've got time for one more.
Okay, Regina, can I go with my question?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so just a background. I am just starting out on FinOps, and I've got a finance background. So I just want to understand from the women, how do I navigate the issue of technical jargon, right? And I am working with mostly men. So just asking the right questions at the right time and showing up fully. And sometimes I just feel like maybe I'm not learning fast enough. So just, how can I navigate that?
I can start. So it is a bit intimidating, coming from finance into tech and speaking to engineers and not knowing the jargon. I would say what's helped me is initially I did the FinOps practitioner, and I also did the vendor foundational training. Like AWS, Azure, Google, they all have a foundational training. And I feel like that gave me a good start, right? It's like, what is cloud? What are the products? I mean, that's like half the battle. Once you have your terminology that you get from those courses, then you can start speaking. I mean, you're not going to know architecture unless you study it completely, but having product knowledge, asking your vendor reps questions, is very helpful as well. I mean, I don't know how many times I saw a service coming up and I'm like, I never heard of this. What is this? Why is it going up? And then you ask them and you figure out what it's for, and then you can communicate that, because half the time, I mean, if you think about where engineers, most of their background is on-prem, right? So cloud is relatively newer for everybody. So when you get that vocabulary, product knowledge, and tagging, I know I had to teach engineers in the past on how to tag what it's for. So I would say be confident, in your basic understanding, and have them explain to you what you don't understand.
Agreed.
Thank you,
I just typed a note in there. Just a healthy curiosity, getting out of your comfort zone and just kind of immersing yourself in what people are doing. 100%, Melanie.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. This session was about learning to celebrate our successes. So you know what? I'm going to celebrate one of my successes right now. I think I was very successful in pulling together an amazing panel. So thank you, Karolina, Melanie, Tammy, and Shaheen. That was a wonderful discussion. I think we could have gone on and on. Fabulous. Thank you. So I'm going to celebrate that success today. I know you're super busy women, so for you to take the time to share all of this information and your experiences on this topic, we are very, very appreciative. I know all of you are out on LinkedIn, so I'm assuming if anyone who's joined us today has additional questions and would like to connect with you, you don't mind. Lastly, I do want to remind and invite everyone to join us at our annual conference, FinOps X in San Diego in June. I say this all the time. Those of you who've worked with me, you know this. I've attended many, many conferences in my working career, but I have never experienced a conference like FinOps X. Again, I'm biased because I work for the FinOps Foundation, but it's 4 days of amazing content and knowledge sharing. And the best part is the people. The people you'll connect with at this conference are incredible. The networking is amazing. I've never been to a conference where I've seen so many really happy people. It's so fun. It's informative. If you can join us, please do so. You can register at x.finops.org. We're less than 90 days away, so we would love to see you there. The other thing I want to share is we do have some single full day regional events coming up. And these events will be full days, and they're going to include keynotes and breakouts and chalk talks, just like FinOps X does. And we're expecting between 250 to 400 people to attend each of these events. If you want to learn more about these events, please go to finops.org. All kinds of information out there about under our events section. Again, I want to thank you to our amazing panel. You guys have been wonderful, but I knew you would be. I want to thank all of you who's joined us today. I know you're all very, very busy, but we hope it's been worth it. Please watch for more Women in FinOps events in 2025. Again, finops.org/events is where you can check those out. At this point in time, I'm just going to say thank you and have a wonderful day.
Hey everyone, producer Andrew here. I hope you enjoy this video as much as I enjoy sharing all of these amazing FinOps stories, best practices, and expertise. Please take a moment to like, subscribe, click the notification bell, and leave comments and questions for our speakers. Check out more FinOps content on our YouTube channel. We appreciate the support.